So I'd like to introduce everyone to our webinar, which is 7 key ways to lower average handling time, and particularly with a focus on lower average handling time in a safe way. Delighted to welcome our 2 speakers. Delighted to welcome back Kim Ellis from Go Ginger. Kim, you're a training consultant.
Yes, I am. I have spent 15 years in call centres, so I know what it's like. I was an agent and then I was a trainer in call centres. So I've gone from insurance to gambling to medical help. So I've got a wide range of different experiences.
And also delighted to be joined for his first webinar with us, which is Will Lusted from Fern. I think I've pronounced that the right way there. Welcome, Will.
Thanks for having me.
And if people aren't aware, Fern is a technology company that also is a reseller of the Genesis Cloud solution. And Will, you're going to be looking at how technology can improve average handling time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to break down an interaction and look at the different stages in which you can deploy solutions such as Genesis Cloud to minimize average handling time, but avoid those pitfalls of that can come alongside it as well. So maintaining a focus on personalizing and making a really memorable experience whilst also bearing that in mind.
Excellent. Well, if you're not already in the chat room, we've got, I think, 42 people in the chat room. We've got about 100 who are not in the chat room currently. So very simple. If just in your browser, you can either type in callcenterhelper.com/chat, or we've now got this new speed dial, if you like. Just type in cch.chat into either your mobile phone or your browser. You'll come up with a page here that just wants to put in your name and email address, and then you'll be straight into the chat room. Once you're in the chat room, we're going to be having a quiz, an interactive quiz later on. So if you want to take part in that quiz, which is a great learning experience, then you'll need to be into the chat room. If you want to download some of the webinar slides, there's the link as well. So just go into cch.chat through your browser or your mobile phone. If you're doing it through your browser, then it's quite useful perhaps having the chat room on one side of the screen and the agenda on the other side of the screen, or the slides on the other side of the screen, so you can see both at the same time, which would be good to do that. We're going to start off with a quick poll, and we're going to be asking the poll, and that is, do you have average handling time as an agent target? You'd just like to vote on that poll. Do you have average handling time as an agent or an advisor target? Kim, where do you think the voting is going to come on this?
I'm thinking it's going to go yes. I think it might not be the only target. It might be bundled in with something else, but I think it will be yes, people have it as a target.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the results. We've got a sample size here of 171, and 64% of people have average handling time as an advisor target. That's certainly quite a strong number overall. So, Will, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a brilliant metric that you can bring into your contact center, but I think it's very interesting to use as a target. And as Kim mentioned, it can be a good target if used in conjunction and support with other aspects of your contact center, such as customer satisfaction, etc. It can be abused, in short.
Indeed. Well, I think one of the key takeaways is that if you're using average handling time as an advisor target, certainly a lot of the research I've seen would advise against it. It's certainly a very important thing to be able to measure, but as a target, it does open itself up to effectively trying to hurry advisors which can get in the way of the customer experience. So just a couple of bits more housekeeping. There is a prize for the best tip. If you use #tip, there's a bottle of champagne, box of chocolates, or an Amazon gift voucher. If you've got any tips for reducing handling time, put those into the chat room. And here's the address if you're not already logged in, which is cch.chat. I think we've got about 100 people who are not yet into the chat room. So there's the address, very simple to do, cch.chat, and then you can go put into the chat room. And if you would like to get a demonstration of the Genesis Pure Cloud system, we have a booking page now where you can actually book a time slot, and Will and his team would be able to give you a demonstration of the Genesis Cloud solution and how that can reduce average handling time. So just like to hand the baton now across to Kim Ellis. And Kim, if you'd like to share with us some of the ways that you think that average handling time can be safely improved.
All right, thank you very much, Janty. Just want to check, can you see my screen? Just want to double check.
Indeed, yeah.
Yes, fabulous. Welcome everybody. Before we get into how to reduce average handling time, I'd just like to get us all on the same page about what average handling time actually is. Now, the Call Center Helper website has a fabulous article called How to Measure Average Handling Time. And in that, it says average handling time, in essence, tells you how much time an advisor spends working on a task and when they're unable to deal with a new item. So that is not just the amount of time it takes to do the call, it's all your wrap-up content as well. It's the full end-to-end contact that we're really talking about today with the average handling time. Now, this article is well worth looking at, and it also links into 2 different articles which have a lot of useful tips in reducing average handling time too, so I'd highly recommend having a look at this article. At the bottom of the screen, I've got the title of the article there as well, which you can make a note of. So without further ado, let's have a look at my top 7 ideas for reducing your average handling time. First one is one-call resolution. Now, this is the holy grail of contact centers. You want to have all of your contacts completed within one call. You don't want to have the customer ringing back, and you don't want to have to do follow-on calls to the customer. Like I said, it's the holy grail. When I was an advisor, sometimes I had to deal with customers who had been given misinformation from other advisors, so that was increasing the number of times that customer was contacting us and increasing their frustration. So there's a few key benefits to having one-call resolution. It's going to reduce your multiple contacts. It's going to increase the productivity of your contact center staff because they're going to be handling more unique contacts. And ultimately, it's going to improve the customer experience. Now, initially, if you're trying to aim for one-call resolution, your average handling times might increase while people are getting used to handling the call end-to-end in one contact. But over time, it will decrease and it'll level out. So one-call resolution is a good one to start with. And it does lead us in to number 2, which is handling difficult conversations. There's nothing worse as a customer than being pushed from pillar to post. If you train your advisors or your agents in handling difficult conversations, give them coaching, active listening techniques, then every single agent will have the skills to be able to handle these difficult conversations, whether it is somebody who's been given misinformation, somebody that's had a problem with a product, or any other type of conversation. Top tip for this is really to focus on empathy, not sympathy. Focus on empathy with your agents, because get them to put themselves in the customer's shoes, and they'll find handling those conversations a lot easier. Couple of benefits for this is the customer's going to feel acknowledged and understood. And also it's going to reduce confusion and misunderstanding because your agents are going to be trained to handle those conflicts, handle those conversations, and handle them well. Brings us to top tip number 3 is contact analysis. This one is really key for increasing the skill levels. It's going to improve your agent performance because when they're listening to themselves, they're going to hear the tone of voice, they're going to hear the pace, how fast they're talking to the customer. They're going to hear if they sound monotone or if they sound alive. So this is a really good one. It's going to also help to put your agents in the customer's shoes, because they're going to think, if I was that customer, how am I coming across to them? Or how would I want to be spoken to? And ultimately, it's going to improve your customer experience. When I was working in the call centers, my team leader at the time knew that I would really benefit from listening to my own calls. I was a very fast agent, and I took a lot of contacts, and I could turn a call around very, very quickly. But when I listened to my calls, I found that I didn't sound like how I thought I sounded. I didn't sound alive. I sounded monotone. I sounded flat. I was very blunt, very one word questions to people. Color, make, location, that kind of thing. So listening to the call was a real turnaround point for me. And it is a really useful tool. Next one is creating a knowledge bank. Now, this is a really useful tool. A couple of contact centers that I've worked in have had the knowledge banks. One of them had an internal only knowledge bank, which was full of useful tips, spreadsheets, quick sheets, tip sheets, all of that kind of things. And then another contact center had one that was online, which the customers could also access. So when the agent was explaining a very complex solution or a very complex thing to the customer, they could direct them to the help sheets. So they could really read and digest that information. It's going to increase your agent knowledge, which in turn is going to increase the productivity because they're going to get more comfortable and more confident with the answers that they're giving. And ultimately, it's going to improve your customer experience because your agents are going to be highly skilled. They're going to be able to handle difficult conversations. They're going to have a knowledge bank that they can access whenever they like, or even refer the customer to it if it's one that's online as well. And this is going to link into our number 5 tip, which is Floorwalker Support. Now, Floorwalkers, they can be experienced agents, senior agents, team leaders. It can literally be anybody that is skilled enough to offer help and support to your agents if they need answers quickly and effectively. These work really well when combined with your knowledge banks, because your floor walkers, they can go to your agent and give point of need information, advice, help. But if it's not an urgent query, they can also refer people to the knowledge bank, so they can help increase that agent's knowledge as well. When choosing floor walkers, I would say just make sure that you give them training on how to coach people, because you don't want a floor walker that's just going to give the answer. You want a floor walker that's going to coach your agent, that's going to get them to think of the answer for themselves, because somebody's going to retain that information a lot easier if they've come up with it themselves or if they've got partway to the answer. It's going to increase agent knowledge. It's going to increase your productivity because they're getting that point of need information and help. And it's going to improve your agent and your customer experience. This is a good one because improving your agent experience is when you've got agents that have just come out of training and their confidence isn't very high because they're very new to that job. Having Floorwalker support will mean that they're going to feel supported and they're going to feel more confident just knowing that they've got somebody there to help them if they have a problem. But don't just keep it for just out of training. Have your Floorwalker support consistently. Number 6 is give realistic targets. Now, I've been targeted because I was an agent for several years before I started training, and the targets were always ones that were achievable. I had to push for them, but they were still achievable. If you give an agent a target if they're handling on average 10 calls per hour and you turn around and say, I want you to handle 15 calls per hour next month, is that achievable? Is it realistic? Because for some agents, it's going to push them and it's going to really get them to drive forward to get that extra 5 calls per hour. But for other agents, they're going to just go back to how I used to be, which was monotone and just banging the calls out one after another. And your quality of the customer experience is going to go down. So make sure that they're realistic targets. One thing that I would say is average handling time. We said earlier on the poll that I think it was 67% said that they do use it as a target. It's a great measuring tool. It's a fantastic metric. And it's a great coaching tool, but should it really be a target? Do you want someone to bang calls out as quickly as possible, or do you want somebody to wow your customers, make them brand advocates for your company and get them to recommend their friends and family to come to you because the agent has handled them so well and they've handled their query, they've handled their concern fabulously? So just have a thought on that one. So with this, your agents are going to be empowered. Give them realistic targets. They're going to be empowered to push forward, to push for those extra calls, push for those shorter calls, but still retain that customer experience. That's one of the most important things. Never forget your customer experience. It's going to increase your productivity and it's going to reduce your agent turnover, because nobody wants to work in a stressful environment. If they're stressed because they're not hitting their targets all the time, then they're going to just leave and they're going to go to a competitor or a different call center. So make sure that your targets are realistic, make sure that they're achievable, but don't make them too easy because everybody likes to push a little bit. Now, my last one is a little bit controversial, and this is all about updating your processes. Revitalize your existing processes, because, well, actually, I'll just tell you a little story. When I first started in a breakdown company, we used map books, big A4 map books to find customers. So we'd find out, what road they were on, what town, we'd find them in the map, we'd then allocate somebody, a breakdown operator, to go out and fix the car or recover them home. And this is going back to like the early 2000s. So this is before Google Maps. The internet wasn't even that great back then. And they brought in, the company brought in a computerized map called Autoroute. And I was skeptical. This is before I even started training. So I was like, this isn't going to work. I don't like this. I like my map book. I can write on my map book. But you know what? Once I got used to the new system, and once everybody else got used to the new system as well, it was actually a lot quicker. And added benefit was that we could now find people on postcode, which was fabulous. So with this, it's going to improve your customer experience. But when you're updating processes, your average handling time is going to get larger. It's going to get longer. It's going to get bigger, because everybody's getting used to the new processes. Everybody's getting used to the way that the new systems work, the new processes work, the new salutation. It can be literally anything, but your average handling time is going to get larger. You just need to be aware of that, but it's going to bottom out. It's going to level out, should I say. Most importantly, when you update processes, you're going to have a consistent approach to all of your customers. Multiple places that I've worked in have gone through a large process mapping activity. And you had people that had been there, this breakdown company that I worked in, there were people that had been there since the 80s who were doing things their way. And then you had people like me coming in, and we were doing things in a new way because we were doing things the way that we were trained rather than the way that we'd always done it. So there was a big inconsistency with approaches there. So updating your processes is really going to get that consistent approach to all of your customers, and it's going to improve your customer experience overall. But like I said, this one, you are going to get that increase in average handling time. You are going to get some resistance because nobody likes change. But ultimately, it will be better for your agents, for your business, and most importantly, for your customers. So those are my top 7 ideas for how to reduce your average handling time. Like I said, a little bit controversial on a couple of them because it is going to increase your average handling time initially. But before I finish, I just want to tell you a little story. Just to, wrap this up. When I was an agent, like I said before, I was quick. I was good. I thought I was good at my job. I just want to use this example to let you realize that you need to take all of these ideas with a pinch of salt, because there's hundreds of different tips in how to reduce average handling time, but not all of them are going to work for your contact center or for your customers. Now, when I was working in the breakdown call center, this is a lovely picture. I think I was about 21 there. I look 12. I took a sales call, and I could turn around a sales call in, 4 or 5 minutes. This particular sales call was 72 minutes long. Now, the gentleman, he was a retired builder. My husband's a builder, so we were talking about arthritis and everything. That's why it was 72 minutes, because we were having a good natter. He came on and he wanted our standard product, which was, roadside assistance and recovery to wherever you want to go. But through the conversation with him, it became evident that actually that wasn't the right product. And before, I'd always really sold what people wanted rather than what people needed. So through the conversation that we had, he ended up going away with house call and a hire car, just in case he needed it as well. So I did upsell him to a different product, but that was because through the conversations and finding out really what he needed by having that rapport with him and having that backwards and forwards, I found out what he needed rather than just what he wanted. Now, I'm not going to advocate having 72-minute sales calls because it's going to break all the team leaders out there in cold sweats. Don't have a 72-minute sales call. But I want you to use this as an example of every customer is different. Every contact is different. You can't say to people, you need to have a 5-minute limit on your sales calls or a 2-minute limit on your claims calls. You can't do it because you're just going to turn people off your company, because those people that need that little bit of extra assistance, little bit of extra explanation, they're going to always push that over. So treat every call and every customer as an individual, and don't have a 72-minute call.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Kim. We're going to go across and we're going to have a quiz in just a moment, but I'll give everyone a little bit of time to log into that. You can do on your phone or on your PC, either type in callcenterhelper.com/ or cch.chat. So Kim, I think there's some great points you made in that presentation. Certainly one call resolution, it's kind of an interesting one, but one of the techniques to improve average handling time is actually to remove it as a target completely and focus on the outcome. And then a lot of organizations I see in the short term increases average handling time, but eventually as you're starting to get on the same wavelength as your customer, that can reduce it going forward. Handling difficult customers, I think having some training around that, having those conversations can certainly improve both customer satisfaction, follow-up complaint rates, and also improving average handling time. And I certainly think Floorwalker Support is really quite a key thing. So we're going to jump across to a quiz now, and I can see that we've got 110 people into the chat room. It's callcenterhelper.com/chat, and just a couple more people coming in there. Right, I'm going to get going. So the first question is, Kim talked about a record of 72 minutes for her call. But the record for the longest customer service call at Zappos, the online shoe retailer, is how long? Is it A, 3 hours 43 minutes, B, 6 hours 43 minutes, C, 8 hours and 43 minutes, or D, 10 hours and 43 minutes? So if you just like to vote on A, B, C, or D, and that is at the button on the bottom right-hand side of the chat room. So is it A, B, C, or D? I've got a few more people voting there. I think we've got most people there. Okay, let's have a look. Well, the correct answer was D. We've got 17 correct votes for that. The correct answer, 10 hours and 43 minutes. In 2016, Zappos advisor Steve Weinstein answered a call from a customer who needed some help with an order of a few items. The two began to chat, and even after she was helped, she stayed on the line for a total of 10 hours and 43 minutes. That certainly is was one very long call. Probably went beyond the actual shift there. So who's leading? We've got Daniel in first place. So second question, according to Forrester, what percentage of US consumers say that valuing their time is the most important thing a company can do when providing service? Is it 33% of consumers, 53%, B, is it C, 73%, or D, 93%? So which percentage of US customers say valuing their time is the most important thing a customer can do? We've got most people have got this right. 44 of the people guessed that at 73%. It came from a 2016 Forrester report, which found that 53% of US online adults are likely to abandon their online purchase if they can't find a quick answer to their question. So Daniel's still in the lead there. In which of the following sectors did a University of Cornell report find contact centers have the longest call handling times? So the longest call handling times in A, telecommunications, B, retail, C, business and IT services, or is it D, financial services? Which ones have the longest call handling times? Let's have a look at the answer. The answer there, actually, most people got this one wrong. The answer is A, telecommunications. According to University of Cornell report, the average AHT for contact center in the telecommunications sector is 528 seconds, which was the highest of that group. So Daniel's still in the lead here, but Janet's catching up fast. And which of the following methods is not a good way to lower average handling times in the contact center? Is it using screen pop technology to better present customer information? Is it B, politely asking advisors to speed up? Is it C, ensuring call routing delivers the right call to primary skilled advisors? Or is it D, to review and update your knowledge base? I think that should be quite a straightforward one. Indeed, the best way to lower handling time is not to advance advisors to speed up. This will likely lead them to picking up behaviors such as negatively impact customer experience and first contact resolution rates. Now that's quite interesting because we all agree that asking advisors to speed up is not the best way of doing things, and yet 63% of the audience have average handling time as an agent target. So I think we need to have a little think of whether we've got a bit of a disconnect with those targets. Okay, final question. And that is, according to Bain and Company, a customer is how much more likely to switch to a competitor if the problem they're having is service-based? Is it 1.5 times more likely, B, 2 times more likely, C, 4 times more likely, or is it D, 8 times more likely? So just like to vote on that. And let's have a look at the answers. And the answer, most people get this right, it is 4 times more likely. As reported in HubSpot, Bain & Company found that the customer is 4 times more likely to switch to a competitor if the problem they're having is service-based. So I think leading all the way through there by quite a margin is Daniel 33. So well done to you, Daniel. That was a nice little bit of fun, but I think ties in with some of the learning experiences. Right, we've got time for a quick poll. And in 2019, did your average handling time in your contact center go up? Did it stay the same, or did it go down a bit? So, Will, what do you think the answer is going to be here?
Ooh, I'm not sure on that one. Let's go for average handling time going up.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the answers here. 58% of the sample size of 196 people, 58% said it went up, 28% said it went down, and 14% said it stayed the same. Tim, this is something I think we find is that as we're getting more and more self-service, average handling time is actually going up in contact centers as we're getting the more complex inquiries coming through.
Yeah, and that's why handling difficult conversations is such an important tool for your agents, because a lot of contact centers now have email queries, they have chat queries, and then they have the phones. So people will often have already tried email or chat because it's very convenient than waiting on hold for a while before they even come through on the phone. So yes, you're completely right that you're getting a lot more complex conversations now.
Indeed. Well, let's have a quick jump to the chat room. We'll have a look at some of the top tips and questions that are coming through. There's been a lot of questions in the chat room. Brooke says, how do we stop using AHT as a metric for agents if the client you work for have stipulated that we must have one? I guess Brooke works for an outsourcer there. Kim, have you got any ideas here on how to deal with this?
I would say combine it with something else. So have maybe a customer experience matrix that you can combine it with, and then you can score them on what the customer experience was plus the average handling time. And you might also pick out some useful tidbits of information about that they're spending longer closing the call than they need to do.
Indeed, and I think one of the things is that, perhaps it's the job of management is to actually perhaps absorb that you say as a management team we'll take that as a target, but we won't pass it on to the advisors because that might create the wrong behaviors. And I think it's that trade-off between short and long term. Let's have a look at a couple of tips. Blend your experienced agents with new agents to reduce AHT, says Mike. And Seema says, and Will, I don't know if you got a thought on this, we use the team average as a guide to understand where everyone is at. I guess, Will, if there's difference in AHT between teams, that might point towards sort of training needs.
Yeah, absolutely. But having said that, it's really important, I think, to maintain a really granular insight to how everyone's performing at that kind of level, so you can pinpoint who needs the right training, etc. I think a team average is good to pass on, but don't sacrifice that for granularity. That's what I'd say.
Indeed. Well, Carl's asked an interesting question here. If a customer doesn't want to end a call, what is the best approach? Kim, have you any thoughts on this?
Well, that one's open to so many variables. So is it that they don't want to end the call because the query hasn't been answered? Is it that they haven't got the answer that they wanted? Is it that they don't talk to people very often, so they just want a bit of a chat? That's how you end up with a 72-minute call. This one, the best approach is active listening techniques. Really kind of focus on what the customer's saying, what they're meaning, and what they're not saying, because then you can really, hone in on making sure that they're getting the solution that they need, they're getting the answers that they need, and ultimately that they're going to go away happy or at least satisfied. So active listening techniques could really help to get to the underlying issues that the customer's saying or not saying.
Indeed, and I think there's a danger there that actually I think the targets may be getting in the way, that actually do the right thing for the customer
Exactly.
I'm worried about the average handling time part later. It's probably a symptom of having the wrong targets in place. Interesting one from Brian. Will says, where possible, put any compliance requirements in your IVR before connecting to reduce the agent talk time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that was raised because it forms a decent chunk of my presentation actually. But no, absolutely. So it can, if that's something an agent having picked up an interaction has to do, that's a big chunk of time that you can actively reduce by doing it in a self-service environment, etc.
Indeed. Well, we've got a question that comes in from Adam who says, AHT is one of many metrics we use, but is there a payoff for quickness of calls over quality? Kim, your thoughts?
Well, you can be the fastest agent, but are you the best? Are all of your millions of customers that you're going through one after another, are they just satisfied with the service that they're receiving, or are they going to then turn around and be brand advocates because they're wowed? I would say don't go for speed. And I say this whenever I'm training new advisors, I don't care how long it takes you to handle the call, as long as you handle it effectively. And as long as that customer is getting what they need, they're getting the right information, and you're closing the call. I never want people to focus on speed when they're coming out of training. But it is a good tool to start honing their skills.
Yeah, I guess there's a real trade-off there. For me, it would be quality every time over quantity. And I think there's quite a number of surveys that have shown that people don't mind waiting a little bit longer to get through, providing once they are through, their call is resolved and they get the answer they're expecting. Interesting opinion. Just before we jump across to Will's presentation, Susan says we've tried to focus on wrap-up time, which is one of the key parts of average handling time. Any extended after-call work that's the time post-call over 60 seconds counts as unproductive time. We measure productivity as a percentage, so that helped us. Handle time is impacted by the complexity of the product, so it's important to compare your agents against the other department average and not as much against other contact centers. That's what we've found. Certainly some of the techniques like trying to move your wrap-up time onto the actual call itself can certainly improve accuracy rather than getting all the notes and doing it later. Because actually, if you type that in while the person's on the call, might extend the duration of the call, but it will certainly reduce average handling time. So let's go and jump across now, and we'll have a look at some of the ways that technology can help. So we're going to pass the baton across to Will from Fern. And Will, if you'd like to take us through some of the ways that technology can help.
Happily. Definitely, yeah, absolutely. So first of all, can I just check that everyone can see my screen? It should say, awesome, brilliant. If you really want to focus on average handling time, don't focus on average handling time, which is the title of this presentation. I'm quite happy to say that seems to be echoed by a couple of the questions that we've been having. And I'd like to think that the presentation I'm going to show you for the next 15 minutes or so will kind of show you how focusing on different parts of how you're interacting with your customers will ultimately have a great effect on average handling time, but also at the same time focus on quality and making interactions memorable as well. So obviously the meeting today is sponsored by Genesis. So I thought it was really important actually just to pinpoint before I go through about Fern, the company I'm from, and what we do. So we have around 20 years, or we're in our 21st year of our kind of heritage within the call center industry as a vendor of call center technology, and we actually provide a product set of our own called Voxevo, which is our own intellectual property that we provide as a voice-only solution to people. So our heritage is very much in there, and our expertise comes from that side of things as a vendor basis. within that last 20 years, we're very, very proud to have become a gold partner to Genesys for offering an omni-channel cloud-based solution in what was Pure Cloud and now Genesys Cloud. Genesys Cloud is a wonderful, brilliant piece of software. We think that certainly helped out a lot of our customers. I think the reason we've been Partner of the Year for the last 3 years with Genesys is because of that whole wraparound service that we bring around Genesys Cloud. Although it's a brilliant piece of software, you need somebody to deploy it, you need somebody to bring voice into it, and you need a great implementation plan and also some way to tackle some wraparound services such as PCI compliance, reporting and international numbers, and that's where we aim to help with a special touch of an SME that we can bring to the table. So over the next kind of 13 to 15 minutes or so, we're going to run through with a real focus on how technology such as Genesys Cloud can help you reduce AHT whilst maintaining quality. Before we jump into that, I thought I'd spend a little bit of time echoing some of the questions we've had actually around, does reducing average handling time equal a good interaction? And also we can look at what contributes to average handling time before we jump into a kind of a more minute view of things. So average handling time, more speed, less haste. So the first, often we get involved in projects, and one of the big goals that we brought to the table, whether it's passed down from higher up or not, is that we want to reduce our average handling time. So I thought I'd share with a few kind of questions that we would then ask from a consultative approach about why essentially do you want to do that. And the first thing we often ask is your conception of what a good interaction is to be a fast interaction or a good interaction? Is there a difference? Secondly, if you're delivering really fast interactions, are they as memorable as they could be? I think from the experience of our customers and what we'll talk about on a day-to-day basis, there is a massive buzzword at the moment around hyper-personalization. So if you're speeding up your interaction, is that lessening the ability you have to make yourselves really memorable as a brand for people to remember and to come back to, and not just to be really quick? Kind of leading on from that, should you really be incentivizing having a really short interaction? So kind of goes back to saying, should AHT be a target, or should you use it to make yourselves better? I think if you strive towards it, if your agent's KPIs are based upon shortening an interaction, then you can leave yourselves over to missing some opportunities. So a customer of ours within retail, for example, had that as a focus, and actually really what they were losing out on was the ability for their agents to use this toolkit within Genesys Cloud to actually promote upselling, to deliver a really good interaction and to make them memorable as an experience as opposed to fast. Secondly, you can come into actually lengthening that sales cycle. For example, if you're a company in insurance with a lot of compliance statements you have to run through, if you're encouraging your agents to speed up, will they forget a bit of legislation? Will they miss something that then they'll have to go back to and then focus on later in that kind of sales cycle, thereby kind of increasing time you spend with a particular customer? So just a few questions for a bit of food for thought around average handling time there. Okay, so I thought a good place to start would be to kind of focus on the different aspects of an interaction that contribute to average handling time. And the first good place to start is around what's happening before your agents are invoked into an interaction. So upon calling into your contact center, your customers may, well, even if they spent time on the website, they'll spend time in an IVR, they may spend time queuing, announcements and positions, etc. Following on from that, actually speaking to an agent, your agent may spend a lot of time on verifying the customer is who they say they are. There's a lot of legality that needs to be adhered to in this day and age, very industry specific as well. So there's a lot of focus around that. Your agent then may have to do a bit of discovery about the reason that somebody's calling. that's information you haven't already collected. Following that, they may then have to navigate to find the right information, and then also start to process that interaction as well, whether that's during the interaction with the payment, or kind of doing some follow-up work. During the interaction, there may be hold time. Your agents may need to communicate internally. We talked about first call resolution earlier. Who do you need to speak to get maybe a thumbs up on a discount, for example, or for a customer? Could take you time to transfer a call. It could take you time to navigate whilst you've got the customer on hold. And then follow-up work as well, as was also mentioned earlier. So whether that's providing follow-up information to a customer, whether that's working with outcomes, and then initiating or altering any workflows that are in place because of that interaction. So the first thing we'll look at is kind of pre-interaction tools, with a bit of a focus on, what can this brilliant new contact center technology that's out there, such as Genesys Cloud, help you in doing before you actually interact, before you invoke an agent into that interaction. What can you do to ultimately reduce average handling time? So the first thing you can start to introduce in that first bit of the call is a really strong self-service environment. Platforms such as Genesys Cloud will allow you to provide self-service either through AI with a chatbot, or will provide a menu list based upon data tips that will feed in and out of your CRM to then, as we'll mention in a bit, talk about routing strategy. A very important thing, as mentioned earlier, was around verification as well. So actually, I think agents doing verification is a thing of the past, as a pass-fail activity. You should be encouraging your customers to make the most of that time in the queuing experience, or to even doing it if you're devoid of a queuing experience, because all of that verification and the information even you collect within that first part of the call via IVR, etc., you can actually use very, very well to make sure the agent knows who they're talking to, and that also isn't a step they have to do themselves. Offering the preferred channel is very important. So being able to deliver an omni-channel solution, different amounts of channels to your customers, but also operationally focusing upon what channel is best for what. So let agents do what they're really good at, be empathetic, deliver amazing interactions. But actually, if somebody's calling up just to, for example, to reset a password, to process a payment, etc., maybe they can start to do that through different channels that are, and leaving the voice channel open to, delivering great service and upsell opportunities, etc. And finally, we'd really encourage you to start leveraging data at this part of the call. So all of that information you can collect, whether that's through the IVR, whether that's on a chatbot, web chat, etc., should absolutely, one, be passed through to the agent when they pick it up. So they can start to really personalize that interaction, and two, have the tools at hand that they can then serve that customer really quickly. But ultimately, all of those tools, whether you're collecting information from the website, whether it's from the IVR, can be used to lower average handling time in preparation, preparing the agent. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about, so verification has happened at the start of the interaction. The agent now receives an interaction into their portal. So this slide is very much about what you can provide, or what solutions such as Genesys Cloud can provide to your agents to help them kind of speed up that interaction, essentially, whilst maintaining quality. And the first thing we'd always recommend, and what technology should do for you, is to really simplify their day-to-day environment. And by that I mean eradicating navigation. Time and time again, we'll come into a discovery session with a customer or a potential customer, and one of the problems they have is that an agent will, off the top of my head, somebody I was speaking to last week had 43 different places that they would have to navigate to on any potential call to serve the customer. which takes a long time. Solutions such as Genesys Cloud will allow you to present absolutely everything you need to serve the agent in one single interface. You log in the morning, you sit within one central environment, and everything you need to serve the customer, whether it's CRM information, etc., is available at your fingertips without removing the need to navigate. On that note, a single view of the customer is really important. And also on that term of kind of hyper-personalization, really knowing who you're speaking to and to give that memorable experience as well. So leverage that data to give your agents a view of that customer, whether it's their previous interaction history, their customer journey, all of that can be used to get to the root cause of that call as soon as possible. Secondly, it's all about what you can also give to your agents in terms of toolkit to do things effectively. So one example of that would be using dynamic scripts, for example, whether that's in a web chat, whether that's via an email, or whether that's during a voice call in itself. People often think that scripting is a tool that will actually not give a memorable experience. Well, actually, if you can provide your agent on that script environment with buttons that are there based upon what the customer needs and what's been collected by the contact center, you can really focus on the customer interaction and have those buttons there and ready to use and to bring into the environment. Similarly, one of those buttons might be canned responses, for example, as opposed to typing out the same email every single time. If you know what the interaction's about, your contact center environment should present you with those canned responses with the customer's name dynamically placed within those, so you can fire that out as quickly as possible, make yourself available for the next interaction. Other things to focus on within the toolkit should be things like knowledge bases we mentioned earlier, so being able to have access to that without having to interrupt the customer. Being able to communicate with the rest of the team is also super important as well. Lastly, a good place to touch upon is what you can use your contact center to do outside of the interaction in hand. So outside of dealing with your customers, what can you be doing to help you improve and get better and thereby reduce AHT? So one of those things is knowing where you can actually improve. And what you need to start focusing on is having really granular and channel specific reports as well, and a place where you can really combine all of that information. So whether there's tasks that are happening in your CRM environment, whether there's workflows that are happening elsewhere, you need to present those to the supervisor as soon as you can get them and actually achieve a global view over what's going on in each of these interactions. Live analytics too is super important to make sure that as interactions are flying in, you're maintaining the level of quality that you want to do. How can you become more efficient? So workforce management as a tool is super important, and ideally that should be native to the contact center solution that you're using for the speed of navigation, etc. Upon knowing how adherent your agents are, how I think something that was mentioned earlier was what's going on in wrap-up time. If you can evidence that 60 seconds is the optimal point for wrap-up, then you should be managing your workforce accordingly and knowing how adherent an agent is to task at any one time to increase that efficiency. And then also, how do you get better? So really, again, having a really kind of qualitative look at what you can be doing to better content, better sentiment, and better see what the agent's doing. So, for example, if your agent has taken an interaction where somebody can't navigate the website well, and you've entered into a screen share with that customer to point them in the right direction, then you should have a really good oversight and then a quality scorecard about how well they've done that as well, and being able to walk that customer through each journey. Quality is important in terms of brand, because the service you provide should be bespoke to you. So being able to tailor that quality analysis to your specific company is really important as well. So I guess to recap, at the start of the interaction, make sure you can leverage data to help with verification tasks and self-service and artificial intelligence to make that side as quickly as possible and as useful as possible before you actually reach an agent. When the agent gets it, make sure that they have all the tools they need, make sure their environment is simple, make sure they don't have to navigate, and actually at the end of it, make sure that all of that time as a supervisor, you're working to deliver a best practice environment to make sure everyone's super engaged as much as they can be. As mentioned earlier, if anyone would like to see any of this in action, my details are on here, and there's a whole team of people that are really excited about making customer lives a lot better. So speak to us and we'll help you out.
Indeed, thank you very much indeed for that, Will. I think some very good points there. If anyone would like to see a demonstration of the Genesis Cloud system and how that can reduce AHT, then we can certainly get that arranged for you. Some quite interesting points there. You can reduce AHT by improving your routing strategy in terms of getting the call to the right place. Put everything you need into one place, and analytics can help improve areas where AHT can be improved. So what we're also experimenting with today is actually a live booking service that if you want to go across and have a demonstration of some of the technology, if you visit callcenterhelper.com/demo, let's see if we can, I can't quite jump to the link there. Oh, here we are. And there's actually a booking page here where you can actually book a slot next week, or perhaps the one of the 2 weeks after that. There's a range of different time slots, so you could actually book a demonstration online, and the team at Fern can certainly show you how Genesis Cloud could help to reduce average handling time. So let's jump back into the chat room, and I think I seem to have lost my screen. So Rachel, I don't know if you can pop the screen up with the latest tips on there, please. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the tips. Seema has said, we often select the longest calls for quality checking. These calls are played to agent in their one-to-ones to enable them to reflect on the call and for them to identify how they can improve call control. Kim, what's your thought on this tip?
You could have one of your longest calls is one of your best calls because the customer had a very complex issue and it was handled and sorted. So I would say don't just select long calls, get a variety. So get the quickest call, the longest call, and then one from the middle so they can really see how they're coming across to that customer. But listen to the calls yourself first to make sure that it is actually a useful contact for them to listen to, rather than it just being somebody getting transferred to another department.
Indeed. There's an interesting one from Scott here. Move low emotive subjects to digital channels, freeing agents to take only and invest in the highly emotive subjects. That's an interesting one. I think William ties in with some of the points you were making.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's something we mention quite a lot with our customers actually. So instead of actively seeking to reduce the talk time of your agents on the phone, actually that will start to fall away if you are starting to do more transactional things without emotion via digital channels, so over email or via web chat, etc. I think absolutely make sure your agents can focus on being empathetic about personalizing the interaction and really get them to focus on what it means to interact with you as a brand.
Adam raised an interesting question here. Would you have AHT as a target in a sales environment? Kim, I'd almost say never have AHT as an agent target. Your thoughts on a sales environment?
Well, this one obviously didn't work for me in my 72-minute sales call. I would say have it in there as a consideration, but not a target. It's a good tool to show people how long they're taking on contacts, but focus more on the interaction than the speed.
Indeed. We've got a question in, a tip in from Tia. It says, make side-by-side coaching a regular thing. Once operators are not scared of this anymore, use it as a tool to give them hints and tips, which I think is a very good one. And Adrian said, when reviewing processes, which I think was your point 7, Kim, use a mix of new and senior agents. I think some companies do not use agents for processes, where they're the ones who do it the most. I think, Kim, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm giving that a double thumbs up. There's no point rewriting processes from people that used to work in that department or have never worked in that department, because your managers, your team leaders, your quality management people, they don't know what it's like to actually do the job right then. They might have worked in the contact center 5 years ago, a couple of years ago, or whatever, but get people in who are actually doing the job right now, and it will be invaluable when you're doing your process mapping.
Indeed. Well, we've got the winning tip. This comes from Alan 5, who says measure customer handling time as well as average call handling time. This gives the overall effort time per customer, combining both AHT and FCR. This shows any overall how any overall effort impacts. If you concentrate on reducing individual call time, this may impact the calls per customer. I think that's a very good tip. So we'll be in touch with you, Alan, to discuss your prize. In 1 or 2 words, if you could just put into the chat room or into our closing poll, what did you like best about today's webinar? Certainly, if you wanted to get a demonstration of the Genesys cloud system, here is the link again. It's callcenterhelper.com/demo, and you can book an appointment to go off and see that. The replay and slides are going to be available in about an hour's time. So that's at callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. So just like to say thank you to both of our speakers. Kim, thank you for joining us again.
Pleasure. And if anybody would like to ask me any questions offline, then just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And welcome for your first webinar with us, Will Lested from Fern.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. And if anyone would like to see any technology in action, just let us know. Whether you're looking to benchmark, whether you're kind of excited for new technology, we're here to help.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much indeed for that. We're going to be back next week, where we're looking at contact center and customer service innovation. So look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks a lot then. Bye-bye.
Oh, that was all right.